Welcome to my very first Serious Sunday on my channel. I hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. There's going to be many videos to come. Make sure you guys follow me on all my social medias below and comment down below some cases / events that you guys want me to talk about. I'll be more than happy to cover everything. Just leave some comments down below. In today's video, we will be talking about JonBenet Ramsey, a 6-year-old who was murdered possibly in her sleep in the middle of the night in Boulder, Colorado. JonBenet Ramsey was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia. She had her mother, Patsy Ramsey, her father, John Ramsey, and a brother, Burke Ramsey. Obviously, you know, they come from this lifestyle, this high fashion, high wealthy lifestyle in Atlanta, Georgia. And fortunately enough, John Ramsey, he created this business. He was rated the #1 entrepreneur, multi-billionaire business, and moved his family to Boulder, Colorado, a more college type of town, calm, more normalized people, kind of like a fantasy world, but it wasn't too fast-paced like Atlanta, Georgia. It's more family-based. It's a little bit about John Ramsey. When it comes to Patsy Ramsey, she was like this high society goddess, as some people would describe her. She also did beauty pageants. As you will later find out, she also entered JonBenet in beauty pageants as young as 4 years old. And she was just the type of person who hosts all the parties, who wants everyone to know, you know, what they have going on, and just a really flashy type of lady. We don't know too much about the son / JonBenet's brother, Burke. Just that he was 9 years old at the time. We'll get into him a little bit more later when he comes into the story fully. For now, we're just going to focus on the three: John, Patsy, and JonBenet. JonBenet was murdered December 25th, 1996 in her home. Just 6 years old at the time, and her death became worldwide. It is said around 5 a.m. Patsy Ramsey decided to get up out of bed and start getting ready for their family vacation that they had planned. Now, this is in the morning of December 26th, so this is the day after Christmas. And they had a family vacation planned, and she got up to kind of get the house ready, get everything packed up. So once the family does wake up, there's not much to do. You know, she's head of the household trying to get everything together. It's 5 a.m. and she's walking down their back staircase and see a note placed in the middle of the staircase, like on the bottom step, right in the middle of the step. It is 2.5 pages long, and she begins reading it, and it's a ransom note saying basically, I have your daughter. I need you to pay $118,000, which is the exact amount that that was his bonus for that year from his job. So someone knew that specifically. The letter goes on and on and on and on, rambling, I have your daughter, and saying all these weird quotes that's from obvious movies. So it didn't really seem reliable, but obviously she freaked out, called the police, called for John, said my daughter's been kidnapped, she's going crazy, she is freaking out as a mother would. The police comes to the scene, they search the scene. We'll get into that. John and Patsy calls in all their friends and family from all over the neighborhood, all over the city, all over the town. Everyone comes to their house and contaminates the house. Let me just say this. Your daughter is missing. One, you freak out. You call the police. You go up to her room, she's not there. Boom. Your daughter's missing, so you call everyone you know and come into this crime scene. Let me call everyone so they could come into this crime scene and contaminate any possible evidence that may be, any DNA evidence, footprints, whatever the case may be of an intruder being here. It is 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Let me wake everyone up to come to my house because someone just kidnapped my kid. If it was me and John called me, I'm holding my kids close in my own home. I'm not going out to where the intruder just left your house. Whatever. Sorry for the lighting change. The sun is moving. But long story short, there's no long story short to this case. The police gets there, just asks a couple questions. They take the ransom note. They do basic search. They search the house. Obviously, they did not search the entire house. 10 o'clock comes that morning. I know in the note it said specifically 10 a.m. I want my money. You can have your daughter. Boom. Hours and hours go by. Detectives leave the scene. I'm couldn't really find why specifically. There's so many different, from so many sources, so many different sources said different things. I don't know why. I just know eventually they left the scene and left one lone detective there with the family, and her name was Linda Art, and she did not have much experience when it comes to these type of cases. She was fairly new to this type of situation, and she was left alone with this family. She doesn't really know what to do, and she didn't really want to sit there and do nothing and basically waste time. So what she did was she just said, hey John, start top to bottom, see if you find anything. And he went straight to the basement, straight to this door where JonBenet Ramsey was found dead, covered with a white blanket. He said there in that moment he knew that she was gone, and he knew that it was too late. So his first instinct was to remove the white blanket, that obviously fingerprints and fabrics was placed onto the blanket because, it had to be laid over her. That's evidence. He snatched it off of her, took off the duct tape, which, again, the person who placed the duct tape on her face has fingerprints and DNA that's possible for testing that you just contaminated. Took it off of her, carried her. I believe he took off the noose that was on her, and carried her upstairs and placed her in the living room in front of everyone, right in front of the Christmas tree. Patsy Ramsey lost it. When I take lost it, she's screaming, she's laying over her, holding her, crying, which I 1000% understand. I don't have a kid, but I will go crazy too. It's just the fact, it just seems a little bit too overboard. And again, you can't really tell parents how to act when they lose their child, but it looks purposeful, is what it was described by Linda Art. Purposeful. She purposely was contaminating evidence in a way, allegedly. Purposely leaving her hairs and doing this, and her hair is gonna get on the body and it's gonna look normal. Linda Art specifically said in an interview that at that moment, when she looked John Ramsey in the eyes, she held her holster that had her gun, and counted that she had 18 bullets in there, and she was fearful of her life. She just had a feeling that by the time the authority came, the rest of the police and all that stuff came, that they weren't going to be alive when they got there. So she already kind of made the assumption that John did this, and John is realizing that Linda is realizing that he did this, and she doesn't know when she needs to defend herself, is what she's basically saying, which I can understand. That's a scary situation. You're one cop left alone in this huge mansion full of all of JonBenet's family, friends, parents, brother, and it's kind of like, oh my god, I'm gonna be murdered, like I'm next type of thing. Police gets to the scene and things like that. What happens next is fairly weird, but I also understand John's perspective. As I watch John and Patsy Ramsey more and more, I kind of start to feel a little sad for them because they seem really hurt, and that's why I somehow believe that they did not physically murder their child. But I'll get into what I believe later. But that's just foreshadowing my belief. I do not believe that they're the ones that murdered JonBenet Ramsey. We'll get into that though. But like I said, he was questioned, like, why did you, first thing you do was call your private pilot and arrange a flight back to Atlanta? And he basically gave a logical explanation, which is that the police said you needed to go. This is now a crime scene. They needed to secure the scene, etc. And they had nowhere to go. So he wanted to go home to Atlanta where the rest of his family was. He didn't have any family here. Please also keep in mind that John had 2 other kids. One actually passed away the previous year in a car accident. So that's another reason why I'm like, he lost a kid already. He doesn't really know how to act. This is his second kid. Not only is his second kid, it's his second daughter that he lost. He now lost both of his daughters. And it was only a year ago, and JonBenet's 6. So I just don't see him physically murdering her, but we'll get into it. Okay, so let's track back a little bit and let's get into this ransom note. This ransom note was 2.5 pages long, which is not normal at all. Ransom notes is a quick note, hey, I have your daughter, give me $1 million, I'm done. Not a very specific number such as $118,000, which is the exact bonus amount that John received the year prior, I believe, or a couple months ago, whatever the case was. He just received that exact dollar amount bonus. The pin that was used was found to be a pin from Patsy. It's from the house, and it was specifically in Patsy's office area or whatever, the craft area. Also a draft of the note that was crumpled up and thrown into the trash can, like, in the house. How much time does a kidnapper have to write a draft of this ransom note and then write the final draft, the final product, and it's 2.5 pages long? That is so much time, it's ridiculous. And obviously they wrote that in the house because it's the draft, the pen is from the house, the notepad is from the house, and the final paper is obviously, in the house, and it's all from the same notepad, same area of the house. So it's like, I don't believe that's a real ransom note. Just say that Patsy called John, police, whatever. Let me just throw in a couple theories and a couple things that people have said about this police audio. Is that at the end they heard Burke's voice in the background, which completely goes against what Patsy said, basically stating that Burke was asleep the entire time until the police arrived, or whatever the case may be. But basically during the findings and all night, Burke was asleep, and when she called the police and found the note, Burke was still asleep in his bed in his own room across the house. So there's no way that his voice should be heard or speculated to be heard on the end of that police call. So I'll go ahead and play the end just after they were supposed to hang up, but the phone never actually hung up. And this is what people think or assume, that they heard Burke's voice on the end of this call. So here we go. So I've heard the audio, obviously. I can't 100% say I believe that's Burke on that call. I don't believe he was sleeping at that time, but I cannot say it was him on that call. Can't really make out the audio, and some experts say they can, and some experts say that they can't. So it's really still a toss-up. It's not valuable evidence. It's not something that can be proven. So we can't really use it. But people believe that it was Burke that was speaking at the end of that audio. To me, it just sounds like they were walking away, and as they walked away from the phone, the voices got lower and lower because they're walking away, and it just sounds different. But I don't know. Comment down below what you think, because I really can't make anything of that. So after JonBenét body was transferred and the investigation begins, many different things started to not add up. One, the fact that the family was not cooperating with the police, even though they stated that they did. They did not. I believe it was the next day or a couple days after JonBenét was murdered, body was found, murdered. They went straight to CNN and did this interview declaring their innocence. And then it was just becoming, not known, but like it was just being spoken that they may be considered for suspects, things like that, but it wasn't 100% yet. And they just wanted to hurry up, get on TV and say, no, listen, whoever did this, we're gonna find you. I'm innocent, I'm innocent, I'm innocent. Later, John explained that they were advised by their lawyers to do such things, but it was kind of like a little iffy. But why would that be the first thing on your mind, or why would you even allow that to take place? I get it, your lawyer told you to do it, but I would say, hey, my daughter's dead. Like, my second child is gone, and last thing I can think about is getting on television, national television, on CNN, and declaring my innocence when I don't have anything to prove. And if I was not guilty, if I had no sense of guilt, I'll let the evidence speak for itself. Personally, again, I don't have any kids. I don't know. That's just me. Okay. So basically, let's dive into the evidence. Like I was stating, there was no sign of forced entries, no break-ins, no jamming on the doors, no broken windows, no footprints in the snow, which can be ruled out because, everyone and their mother and their children and their families were at this house after the ransom note and after the police and everything. So you can't really count that as evidence. But so when they start getting into the physical evidence, a couple things that they focused on was that, one, the garrote that was made, I'll insert a picture, was made from things from within the house, such as the string, the paintbrush, and that together created this garrote, this new sort of thing that strangled JonBenet Ramsey. Her official cause of death was strangulation by a homemade garrote and a blunt force to the head. Obviously, she either was strangled and then hit, or hit and then strangled. Again, we'll get into some theories at the end, but there's just so much to uncover with this case. Please, please, please leave your comments down below as to what you think about this so far. Okay, sorry you guys. The clips, as I'm listening to some of my video, some of my clips aren't even there from the end of my video, and I'm not sure why. So unfortunately, I wanted to have my first Serious Sunday to be still, and I'm actually focused, but unfortunately I lost those clips. So now I have to re-talk about those clips, and I'm driving, so I just turned down my air so it's not as loud. So now I have to re-talk about those clips. One thing about the clips that I lost, I did have some videos to insert that will kind of go over what I'm stating anyways. So basically the next part that I was going to get into is the actual evidence part, which is really, really crucial in this investigation. So to start off, the duct tape that covered JonBenet's mouth had fabrics from the coat that Patsy was wearing the day of and the night before at the Christmas party. To me, that is suspect, because why the coat fabrics is on the duct tape unless you physically had that coat on while you were covering your daughter's mouth? Because otherwise, I mean, we can go look at my duct tape right now, and I guarantee you that there's none of my coat's fabric, or none of my clothing fabric probably, is on that duct tape, because it's a duct tape. It's usually in the garage or in a set place somewhere else away from your clothes, your wardrobe. So unless you physically were messing with it at that time. So, but they rule that out as being that it's her duct tape, it's in her house. It's possible the fibers could have been there anyways. So unfortunately, that wasn't hard-hitting evidence. The next thing is they found that there was a unknown male DNA sample on JonBenet's underwear. So unfortunately, there was sexual assault. I'm not 100% sure if it's a history of sexual assault or if it was like a one-time thing. We don't know. We just know that there was evidence of sexual assault on JonBenet Ramsey, and there was male DNA semen evidence that was found in her underwear that did not match John or any other family members or people in the area that they tested. There's also 38 sexual predators that surround this house. So they tested all of them, of course. They all came back negative, so it's not someone that was registered. But it also wasn't John. I'm not 100% sure if they checked births. I'm pretty sure they did, and it came back as negative because he was ruled out as well. So it's not claimed to be anyone in the family when it came to the sexual assault part. That's a piece of evidence that is a little iffy with me. Like, I believe one theory, but my theory does not include the evidence of sexual assault. It doesn't confirm or deny who did the sexual part, which is it's really hard to take in, especially as a female. It's like, well, that kind of rules out so many people, and no one has yet to match with this DNA sample. And they did retest many DNA samples to match the DNA found on JonBenet's underwear as technology evolved, but it still came back as not a match. Sorry for the lighting changing. Like I said, I am driving now. I'm so mad I lost those clips because I wanted my Serious Sunday to be, serious and still, but I gotta drive, so here's what you get. So the next thing, so that's the sexual part. The next part, is that they did find a single pineapple chunk in JonBenet's stomach. one single pineapple chunk, which if they look at the entire scene, it was also reported that there was a bowl of pineapples on the kitchen counter, like on the island area, and it claimed to be Burke's. We'll get to my theory. It's getting closer and closer to my theory. The final thing that I wanted to mention that was focused on a lot was the blunt force trauma to the head, and that was made by, they compared it to the size of a flashlight, which there was a flashlight found in the kitchen that matches the exact size of her skull fracture, which is just heartbreaking to me. The fact that the possible murder weapon is right there in the kitchen, but it's not confirmed. So that's the suckish part. And the other thing is that the garrote was, used to strangle her. She has strangulation marks on her neck, but that's also kind of to a couple theories before I play my video. So the first theory was that Patsy is the one who murdered her. They say that JonBenet woke up in the middle of the night after wetting her bed. She had a bedwetting problem, and Patsy was upset about that and hit her and knocked her out a little too hard and accidentally murdered her kid. Now, this wouldn't explain the sexual assault. This would not explain the strangulation, because if you just knocked her out, that will only explain the blunt force trauma to the head. So I don't believe that. And Patsy said, I just survived stage 4 cancer. The last thing I'm thinking about or am, going to be that upset about is bedwetting. Like, that doesn't make sense. So I understand that, and I actually believe her. The next one is that John was, in the middle of the night sexually assaulting JonBenet, and he got caught by Patsy and then hit JonBenet for being caught. That's ruled out. Let's just not even talk about it. It doesn't make sense. They already tested his sample. It just doesn't make sense. I want to play a video that is pretty much talking about Lou Smith. He is a detective. He's a detective in Boulder, Colorado. He's actually rated #1 detective in that district, and he believed that there was actually an outside intruder that that did this to JonBenet Ramsey. He was able to look into evidence that was overlooked by the initial investigation. As far as, like I mentioned, there was no broken windows. Apparently there was. There was an open window in the basement. There was a suitcase right under the open window where it looked like someone propped it to get in and out of the house. He also proved by physically going through the window that a grown man can get in and out of that basement window. Initially, it was ruled that the window is too small. It just doesn't seem feasible. It doesn't seem like it's likely that a grown man will be able to get in and out of that tiny window. When he proved that
late detective who was brought in by the Boulder District Attorney's Office to conduct an independent investigation believed a sexual predator killed JonBenet.
I believe he brought her down to the farthest, deepest part of that basement and did very brutal things to her.
Smith uncovered evidence that had reportedly been overlooked by the Boulder police. A broken window where the killer could have entered. A footprint. Marks on JonBenet indicative of a stun gun.
That was a little parade in Charlevoix.
When I spoke to John Ramsey in 2012, he had a lingering sense of regret. Child beauty pageants made him uncomfortable, and he told me if he had another chance, he wouldn't let JonBenet compete publicly.
Were you naive about letting her compete in pageants?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But your lesson was, what if we inadvertently exposed her to the killer?
Obviously, you don't want to keep him locked in the house, but it's just an awareness. Not everyone around you is a nice, good person.
I will also play a video, but it's Burke. And let me just get into the theory. So, I believe that they didn't actually go to bed that night. That when they came home, Burke wanted a midnight snack, I guess, some pineapples. He put some pineapples in a bowl. JonBenet, siblings being siblings, she took one of his pineapples And he was so upset, he grabbed the flashlight off the kitchen counter and knocked her upside the head and accidentally killed her. The only thing that this would not match with is the sexual assault and the strangulation, but it will match with the blunt force trauma to the head, because they did match the size of the flashlight, like I mentioned, to the size of the fracture on her skull. So it honestly, it did make sense. It just did. I'm sorry, but it just did. So this kind of makes sense and goes into the fact that, one, let's talk about the fact that Patsy never changed her outfit. I'm not sure if this was part of my deleted footage or not, but when Patsy opened the door and when the police arrived, she had on the same exact clothes from the night before. So this also goes into the theory that they never actually went to sleep. This incident happened and they had so much time on their hands to, blunt force trauma to the head, you kind of already gone. So maybe they placed this court, set up the whole staged strangulation theory and actually did it to match up with evidence. And then obviously they had so much time to write the note and write a draft. And but yeah, let me go ahead and play the video. Also, Burke's actions just scream guilty, unfortunately. Sorry for the jumping back and forth between the scenes. I just had to really
At first, investigators found no apparent signs of a break-in, and the Ramsey family came under the investigative microscope. Burke, too, placed under the harsh lights of the interrogation room.
When was the last time you saw JonBenet alive?
As seen in these newly discovered tapes of police interviews, included in an A&E documentary, the theory was that Burke killed her accidentally, and the family was covering up the crime. Inside the Ramsey home, a flashlight, heavy enough to be a murder weapon. The strangulation device made from the broken handle of Patsy's paintbrush. The bizarre ransom note was found to have been written on Patsy's note.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of leave it at that. There's so much more detailed and more information. Other people speak out. There's been grand jurors that spoke out. There's been other detectives that spoke out. So you really got to go look into it. It's a really interesting story, and God bless JonBenet, and I hope she's sleeping in peace. I know it's been over 20 years at this point. And yeah, that's really all I want to say. That was my theory. That is all the evidence that I compiled into this video. Some things I agree with, some things I do not, some things I have my own opinion on. So it's really was nice to get so I really enjoyed compiling it all into one video to express to you guys. I really want to know what you guys think. Who do you think killed JonBenet Ramsey? Do you think it was an outside person? Do you think it was John? Do you think it was Patsy? Do you think it was Burke? Do you think it was an accident? Do you think it was sexual assault? Do you think it was a real kidnapping? What do you think about the note and everything like that? Much evidence that goes into this case, and so much that was not brought to the public. And doing my research on it, I've learned so much. Please make sure you guys follow me on all my social medias. Make sure you guys subscribe for more content. Every Sunday will be a new Serious Sunday video, whether it's a true crime, whether it's world events, whether it's political and problematic culture problems. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it all on every Serious Sunday. And I hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye.